Welcome back to another podcast. This is DeVito Podcast, episode 6, Atomic Habits. So, this is something that, I find a lot of value in. I found a lot of value in this book. And, big props to James Clear, who is the author of this book, Atomic Habits. This book explores what I would call the power of how small habits have an impact on personal and professional growth. It's not just, you know, professional growth being at work. It's also when you come home because you spend a majority of your day outside of work, whether you're sleeping, eating, studying, going to school, whatever you're doing. So, the importance of tiny habits, and this is what the book really grills, the idea on, and hence Atomic Habits. It breaks it down to like the very atom. The importance of this tiny habit is that it has a clear idea that emphasizes this concept of atomic habits, which are small incremental changes that compound over time. Now, if you know me, I'm a very big stock market investor. I love investing in the stock market. This is a perfect, what I would call, example of compounding over time because you're making small investments consistently, whether it's every single day or whether it's every single week, whether it's bi monthly, monthly. I know people who make investments like once every 3 months, maybe once a year. Nowadays, with how the market moves, I find it better to invest consistently and often every 2 weeks because the market tends to fluctuate so fast. The market turned around fairly quick this year, if you're not aware. In the span of, I think, 6 or 7 months, it literally just V shape recovered. But besides that point, the small incremental changes that compound over time are extremely crucial to one's own personal progress or growth. And one thing that I really took into account when I was reading this book is I said, what can I be doing every single day where I can compound maybe 1% every single day? And that'll help me grow that skill or, whatever I'm trying to train into something that's going to be compounded to where it's going to have such a, substantial, outcome in myself, whether it's a skill, mentally, physically, whatnot. And that's when I came up with what I call like my speaking drills. A little background story. I took speech and debate in high school for 4 years. I was absolutely terrible. I think it went all 4 years. I never qualified for state, never qualified for nationals. The only time I won a trophy was at our novice, we call novice champs, and I won a trophy, and that was pretty exciting. I think I placed like fourth or fifth place. But the point is that if I spent 4 years doing speech and debate and I didn't get better, it shows that I wasn't making small incremental changes that would compound over time. AKA, I wasn't practicing. I didn't like to practice speech. I often felt very embarrassed, performing in character, performing as someone that I was not. But that's not the point of speech and debate. The point is to go after school, during class and whatnot, but after school to practice. When the school starts to dwindle down, everyone goes home. You go practice after school. You practice against a wall. You speak, and just that amount of practice over time starts to compound, and it starts to stick with you. So, fast forward, I had a lot of issues in college as well with speaking. I always used to slightly stutter a little bit. Me being someone who has a large tongue, if I'm not completely enunciating like I am right now, the words sometimes trip up over each other. So, the reason why I've actually been able to improve my speaking pattern, fast forward from speech and debate and then fast forwarding from college, 4 years of that, was literally, believe it or not, in the last 1 month. And the reason being is that after reading this book, I thought to myself, how can I improve something, a skill of mine, that'll make me seem more personable? and I said, what is the biggest thing that I have issues with? And that was speaking. So, as someone who works in a sales office, you have to speak a lot. You have to make a lot of phone calls. You have to negotiate over the phone. And you're just talking to a lot of different people. And you have to think quickly and you have to speak, methodically. So, I started taking these books that I read, whatever books I read, and I literally just practice it. I speak it while I also read it out loud. And this is something that I found a lot of enjoyment in because I can speak as loud as I want, almost like I'm in an auditorium or a lecture room. And I'm speaking, I like to imagine I'm speaking to maybe 20 or 30 people. So I have to force myself to project all the way to the back of the room, assuming that person in the back of the room, that student, whoever, can't hear me. And by doing this, I noticed in the span of 1 week, although my throat, ached in the very beginning slightly, I noticed that my speaking pattern started to improve drastically because it started to go through a change of, adapting to its environment of, hey, this guy is speaking hundreds of words in the span of, half an hour, and he's speaking very loudly. He's stressing out the vocal cords, he's stressing out, the muscles in his mouth and his throat and whatever. So we have to change, we have to grow and adapt to the situation of stress. So what's really cool is after a week, I noticed my voice started to go through a slight change of started to sound slightly deeper because I was speaking very loudly whenever I was reading my book out loud. Like I'm in a lecture room. So that was pretty exciting. And only by doing that every single day for, in the beginning, I think I started with 15 minutes and I thought that was a lot. I was extremely tired afterwards. My motivation was there, but my stamina was not. And then I realized the reason being why I always get so tired is because when I talk a lot, what I thought was talking a lot, it took the energy right out of me and I just get really tired. My body shuts down. Happens to a lot of people, believe it or not. So I practice. I said by the end of week 2, I want to get to 30 minutes a day. And it only took literally by the end of that week, I think it was Saturday, I hit half an hour. But I did it in 2 increments, 15 minutes and then 15 minutes. And that was rough, like my throat was hurting because I was speaking, so much. I was reading out loud. And I realized the muscles in my mouth, the muscles in my vocal cords started to, strengthen. They were stressing themselves out. And I said, this is why professors are such great speakers most of the time, because they're speaking every single day and they have to articulate their words and think methodically in order to teach, not just one student, but a classroom. And if you're teaching in a room that's the size of like, let's just say it only has like 20 students, you don't have to talk extremely loud. But if you're talking in an auditorium and it's 100 students, you have to project. Now, sometimes, the way auditoriums are set up, they echo the sound. So you don't have to speak extremely loud and it just kind of carries to the back of the room. That's, the shape of that architecture, whatever you call it. But for the most part, this importance of the tiny habit of, speaking every single day gave me so much more confidence in myself to where I can literally go up to any random person and strike up a conversation. And it comes down to a matter of, you speak so much that you start to remember what words come out most easily from your mouth, what is most articulated, or what you can enunciate the best when it comes to talking to someone, or maybe if you're speaking in front of a group of people, or if you have to project, like if I'm yelling across the room, in the sales office, and it's like, hey, line 2, can you grab it? And you have to be able to project that. And in the past, I would kind of choke a little bit because my vocal cords weren't used to that sudden change of low to high frequency of, speaking. So it was only by practicing, bottom line, that I was able to actually increase my stamina, my projection, and it actually helped me with my speaking pattern, which, funny enough, in the span of like what, 1 to 3 months, I made more improvement on my speaking pattern, my enunciation, my projection than I did in the last 8 years of school, college, and high school, because I realized literally from this one book that I read in the span of a week that small incremental changes compound over time. And I thought, oh, I was going to get it over time or overnight, which is not doable. You just have to keep practicing day after day after day. So, focusing on making these small improvements consistently is it's actually more effective than trying to achieve big and drastic changes all at once, like I just mentioned. I would try to memorize my speech for speech and debate the night before, and it was just drastic. It was disgusting. I was terrible because it shows you just didn't put any effort in. Like, what do you expect? Now, because I practice every single day speaking, I can confidently say that I can articulate my words and not really have too much of an issue, or I can talk for long durations of time, whether it's, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Actually, that's short term, but you get the point. So, starting these habits of mine, I gradually would increase the difficulty. Start out a little bit, try to be 1% better every single day. And when you do that, individuals will, or yourself, can create lasting and positive transformations on what you're trying to do or in your life. Now, that was the importance of tiny habits, which is, you're emphasizing that these small incremental changes compound over time. But the book really dives in on what we call the four laws of behavior change. Clear presents four laws. This is the author, his name's Clear. Four laws that serve as a framework for understanding and implementing habit formation. The laws are as it pertains: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So, what he means by that is you have to be able to design and align these habits with these types of principles to where you can increase the likelihood of adopting and maintaining those behaviors in a positive way while reducing the temptation to engage in negative ones. So, I'll give you a perfect example. Everyone likes to watch TV. You sit down at your desk when you come home after a long day at work, and what do you first do? You type in YouTube, or you go and watch Netflix. It's just habit, right? It's muscle memory. The first thing you have to do is you have to break that habit. How do you do that? Do you just tell yourself, like, I'm not going to watch TV today? That could work, but it's just saying it out loud. If you do something that might have a little bit of authority to it, like let's just say, for example, I have a journal. Every day, I write out what task I have to complete by the end of the day. If I write like, oh, I want to stretch, 2 to 3 times today. I want to go work out. I want to hit cardio. I want to work on shoulders and weight training. I want to read my book for an hour. I want to, I don't know, do a podcast. Then I write it down, and that journal, it's slightly authoritative to where I look at it, I go, I want to cross that task out with my pen. The only way to do that is to actually do it. So it serves as a framework that you're understanding and implementing this habit formation. Now, first I'm making it obvious when I write it in my journal. I'm saying, hey, I want to stretch 2 to 3 times today. I'm making it attractive because when I look at it, I go, oh, I can cross it off when I'm done, accomplishing my task. I'm making it easy because it's in my journal. I don't have to log onto my computer. I don't have to highlight and say, oh, I completed this task today. And I'm making it satisfying because when I get to cross it off with my pen, I get a form of satisfaction, a form of accomplishment. So, like I mentioned before, by designing and aligning these habits with these types of principles, I'm increasing the likelihood of adopting and maintaining these positive behaviors while I'm reducing the temptation to engage in negative ones. Now, if I'm saying, oh, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to read for an hour, while I read for an hour, I'm actually taking away an hour from YouTube, which I would be watching, right? Or Netflix. And that's actually a good thing because that is a temptation as a negative, what do you call, whatever you want to call it, a negative habit. And these four laws of behavior change are very crucial when it comes to the actual framework for understanding and implementing your habit formation. You have to make it obvious. You have to make it very just out there. Like out of sight, out of mind. You have to make it just right in front of you, basically make it like a picture, and then you have to make it attractive, which is number two. And if it doesn't look attractive and it doesn't sound attractive, then you're not going to want to do it. Like, you have to be thinking in your mind that this task or whatever you're trying to do to change your behavior is actually appealing to you. If it seems like a chore, you're not going to do it. Third, you have to make it easy. So, a habit, they say, usually takes like 60 days to actually create a habit and to stick by it. Now, I think that it takes most people 60 days. I think it takes some people a lot less. I think it comes down to their own mental like discipline and their own like psychology, how they think. I know people who can start habits in the span of a week. They're just like, that's just how their brain is wired. They know how to tune out distractions, negative, distractions, and they just know how to get right into it. So that's the third one. Make it easy. You have to start out with something that is achievable, because if you start out with something hard, you're going to get discouraged extremely quick. And the last one, you have to make it satisfying. So you have to understand that as a fourth rule, by making it satisfying, you know that there is going to be a positive outcome. When I started speaking my drills, reading out loud, in the beginning, it didn't seem so attractive. It felt like a chore. But then I thought to myself, how can I make it, obvious in terms of how I'm trying to implement this habit form into my own regimen? I said, okay, I'm going to speak in front of a mirror. Now, this is funny because a lot of people don't like the way they sound and they don't like the way that they look. So I'm going to look in the mirror at myself, embrace myself. I'm going to make it attractive. So by not thinking, hey, this is like a chore, I don't really want to do this. If you don't want to do it, then you're already at a losing battle. So I told myself, hey, I'm going to imagine I'm speaking in front of a lecture room, and that made it more attractive. It made it fun. And by making it easy, which ties into me marking it off in my journal, that task, I pace around, the room while I talk. And I imagine like I'm a professor walking back and forth, because professors like to pace back and forth. It's weird how when you pace, your thoughts just kind of become more clear. And, by making it satisfying, you have to have a reasonable goal in mind. Now, if I said the first day I wanted to try this, I'm going to do it for 3 hours. Yeah, good luck. It's not going to happen. So I said 15 minutes. I think that's doable. And I think the first day I actually did like maybe 17 to 20 minutes, and then I was done. But by making it satisfying, I put a timer up and I get to look at it every so often. I realize like, oh, okay, that timer is like, counting down. And then once I hit like that break period, like 30 minutes, sometimes I'll even go over for another 5 or 10 minutes. Just keep going, just keep going. And then I realized like I'm actually making it really fun. It's easy, having a lot of satisfaction. And just designing and aligning these habits with these principles of mine, I just increase the likelihood of literally adopting and maintaining a positive behavior and a new habit that I literally picked up in less than a month. And the only way I did it was because I really took into account what this book was trying to talk about, of you have to, go by these four laws of behavior change. And if you don't, you're probably going to have a really hard time just tackling it as like one big whole piece. You have to break it up in four pieces and then go from there. But these small incremental changes, they compound over time. Over the span of 1 week, I realized, people at work started to say, you sound like a little bit louder. Your voice sounds slightly deeper. And they asked me if I was sick. And I said, no, I think my vocal cords are changing. They didn't understand. They thought I was joking. Because how often do you reply with something like that? But lastly, one point that I really want to touch on that this book emphasizes and that anyone could take away from this is that the role of the environment in shaping habits is very important. The author, Mr. Clear, he emphasizes basically like the importance of the environment in shaping our habits. Environment is extremely crucial. It shapes you, it sticks to you, rubs off on you. If you're in a library environment and you want to be loud like you're in a sales office, it's not going to happen. because a library is not a loud environment. It is quiet. It is quiet. But if I'm in a sales environment and everyone's talking loud all the time, selling, 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 you have no basically issue with speaking loudly or, projecting across the room. So the author he discusses how small changes in different surroundings can really actually have a big impact on your behavior. If you're in a sales office and everyone's like selling and everyone's just like getting after it, it's a positive environment, and you're not necessarily competing against one another, but you're just trying to do your best, like maybe hit a quota, I don't know. That's going to affect your behavior to be very competitive, to be very optimistic that you can hit that quota, maybe even go over the quota, right? But if you're in a library setting, that small change in your surrounding, it's going to bring your mood down. You'll probably find yourself a little bit more tired, low energy, probably lack of blood flow, because that surrounding is not a high energy environment. It's you have to optimize your physical and your social environments, what we call it, is physical and social, to give more support to your positive habits, and you have to discourage negative habits. When I stand up and I walk around and I just do my practicing my speaking drills, I realize I have no intention of wanting to lay down and relax. I have no intention of wanting to sit down and watch YouTube. It's just not appealing to me. And by doing this, we create an environment that actually encourages, our behaviors to make it easier to stick to them. But you have to be in that environment, you know. Um, Usually when I go out with friends, it might be like a restaurant, it might be going outdoors and like the forest, whatnot, hiking, and it's amazing because your environment shapes you. When you go in the forest and you're hiking in pine trees, you're feeling very relaxed. Everyone else is feeling very relaxed. You go to a bar and you're drinking a little bit, maybe smoking a cigar, you're gonna be enjoying yourself a little bit more because you're drinking alcohol, it's loosening you up. You're smoking a cigar, it's nicotine, it's a stimulant. So you're gonna be adapting to your environment, and that environment says go have fun. Whereas when you're in the forest hiking, it's like, hey, relax a little bit, but like also be on alert. There might be bears. So I hope that was a pretty good example of how the role of the environment can shape your habits. But what I mean by that is that if you're in a house all day, like let's just say you're in your room all day, you're just watching YouTube. Your surrounding environment is very boring. It's bland, it's quiet, and it's dead because you're wasting your time. When you could be optimizing your physical and social environments, which is like actually changing your environment around to actually be more beneficial to you. And what I mean by that is sometimes like I'll create a ripple effect in the office. Right when I clock in, I'll start hitting the phone, start doing like, phone calls, and I'll be very loud. I'll try to be very loud about it because I realize, when you speak a little bit loud and it actually, carries out throughout the office and it sticks to someone, then someone else is like, "Oh, I got to like raise my volume." So they speak a little bit louder, and all of a sudden it basically just compounds and it basically just splits off in the office. Other people start becoming a little bit more loud. People start actually talking more on the phone. They start to sell more, and it's like a ripple effect. But that's how you can actually change your environment with, changing your habits first. So I didn't see how this really applied to me up until when, I was speaking and practicing my speaking drills. And then I realized, like, wow, I have actually more energy now. I can actually shape my environment to have higher energy if I bring the energy to everyone else. So, if I act like just completely focused on my work, I don't really want to talk to anyone. People go, "Why are you so quiet?" Like you're just like, you seem like really tired today. And then because of that perception, they start to feel a little bit tired. But if I go, "Oh, I'm actually doing like fairly well, like let's just stand up, let's work from our desk, let's make some phone calls," and you're higher energy, all of a sudden you rub off on those other people. And all of a sudden they look a little bit more jumpy, a little more peppy, a little more optimistic. You realize they just basically gaslighted themselves into believing that they're actually having a really good day or that they're actually full of more energy than they previously thought that they had. I didn't even have to do that to them, they did to themselves. So overall, this book, it's God, it's such an easy read. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. It's a simple book. It takes less than a week to read. But what's most important is that it provides these little practical strategies or insights that helps people like you develop and maintain effective habits that lead to long-term success and personal growth. I can't stress this enough, and people do not like to be told what to do, but if you are trying to implement a new habit, then you need to start today. If you know that you could be doing something different and changing your ways and just being 1% better every day like the book recommends to do, start with small improvements consistently and it just becomes more effective over time and you achieve big drastic changes. You do that, it'll lead to long-term success and personal growth. I remember when I was little quick story, when I was investing, um, you know portfolio took a nice little sell off, market sold off, and I thought to myself, if I can invest, in small incremental amounts, it'll compound over time. And all of a sudden, I saw my whole portfolio compound and just, completely bounce back. Most of it was just the market, but I had to lay the foundation, in terms of equity by increasing my portfolio equity every couple of weeks by investing regularly. Gifts that might have gone for whatever reason, like, holidays or birthdays, um, you know, bonuses from work, that type of thing. And those incremental changes literally compound to where my portfolio just, like, I wouldn't say skyrocketed, but completely just grew so much faster than I expected, and it rebounded faster than I would expect. But those small improvements, being consistent, were very effective for me to achieve my big change, what I call it. And, as I start to see my portfolio grow, I realize every investment technically counts as a little bit less than what the portfolio is currently at. Like, if you're investing $1,000 into a $10,000 portfolio, that's 10% you're investing, right? 1,000 to 10. But if you're investing $1,000 into $100,000 portfolio, that's only 1%. So you're going from 10% to 1%. So I realized, like, oh, maybe I should start investing more. I need to start working harder. I need to start getting a raise or, basically compensated more, whatever. And I realized, like, it actually puts you in a position where you actually want to try harder because you feel like there's a lot of benefit down the road, which there is. And those consistent changes are literally compounding over time, whether it's your time, your money, or your success. Now, just to go over, a few key points that I just went through for the last, however long, that I want to leave with you guys is that first, we should be starting our tiny habits and gradually increasing their difficulty. When it becomes easier, you need to increase the difficulty. I don't care what anyone else says. When my throat started to heal faster and I realized, my stamina increased and I was actually doing my speaking drills for 30 minutes, I upped it to 35 one day. I didn't want to, but I said, nope, you have to because you're increasing the difficulty. Once you hit that plateau, you're sticking at that plateau. You're not growing anymore. You have to constantly be climbing the hill, and that will create a long lasting positive transformation. But when you're, going through these behavior changes, trying to find a framework for your goal and implementation, remember the four laws: making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy, and satisfying is the last one. Those four laws are going to be very crucial when it comes to creating a habit that you're actually going to enjoy, that's very easy to visualize, and it's actually obtainable in which you're going to have fun doing at the same time. And last but not least, your environment is extremely important to how it shapes your mentality. If you're living in an environment where there's a bunch of negative people with piss poor attitudes, you need to get out of there because they're going to be nothing but dragging you down to the dirt. And a book like this only teaches you so much unless you take notes and you just, teach yourself after you finish the book. Because the book is a very easy read, but it's how it impacts you, which is most important. And, the author emphasizes, hey, your environment can shape your habits. If you're in your room all day and you're watching YouTube, don't do that. Go outside. Go get some vitamin D, some sunlight. Go socialize. That's what we're here for. I'm not here to watch YouTube. And you should be, supporting these habits of yours, which is the basis of the book, and trying to find out negative ones. If you don't know what negative habits you have, go on a piece of paper, write down what should I not be doing that I know I'm doing. Whether you're watching like X-rated TV shows or X-rated videos. If you're not working out at least 2 to 3 times a day, or sorry, a week. I mean, not a day, a week. You know, things like that. Working out a few times a week, not watching X-rated videos. Um, you know, reading a book. It's so old school, but it's like, hey, you're gonna increase your stamina by reading. Drinking enough water, things like that. It's very easy. Hanging around with the right people. If you stop texting people that you know you feel like might not be your friend, just stop texting them and see basically who messages you back first, and then you'll realize what kind of dead plants you've been watering. Now, that's my words of wisdom. I stopped texting a lot of people over a year ago to see, who my real friends were. And if you gave me 100 people, I would say probably 3 or 4 people messaged me, and a couple of idiots I just threw out. But the point is, these are proven practical strategies and insights that help you develop and maintain effective habits, and it will help you lead to long term success and personal growth. It sounds very cliche, like, oh, practice every day, work on your personal growth and your long term success, blah, blah, blah. But it's very important because it takes every single day. If you try something new and you build on it every single day, by the time, if you're in your 20s, if you're, by the time in your mid 20s or even in your early 30s, all that practice is just going to compound. It's going to stick with you. I almost guarantee it. But you have to have faith and you have to do it at least, I recommend every single day. But if you have other priorities, do it 3 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week. Give yourself a break, but at least try to do it for the most part every single day, because that's the point of the book. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I really enjoy doing these. I really enjoy sharing my thoughts and my own little personal journey. I think a lot of people could really take a point from this and maybe apply it towards themselves. Like, hey, maybe you guys should start a podcast. I don't know. I won't tell you what to do. It's your choice. But for the most part, I enjoyed this book. This is one of the more simpler reads, but it was very enjoyable in my opinion. And it's just how we explore the power of small habits and how it ripples and becomes something huge, and it just impacts your personal and professional growth. And now we're starting to see waves being generated, but if we want to see giant waves, it's going to take a lot longer, because it's going to take a lot more to compound on that. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Hope you guys have an excellent day. We're in a time now where a lot of people are simply just not on schedule. They don't follow their schedule anymore. They become lazy and complacent, and they allow their temptation to engage in negative, bad habits. So next time you're sitting there thinking of a bad habit, go for a walk. Go work out, or just take a cold shower. That's my fun one. I love my cold showers. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will talk to you guys next time. And as always, thanks again for listening. Take care.